Okay, hopefully we are back. We'll see if that shows up in a second. No. It appears to be back. Okay. Maybe. I'm looking around, things showing me. Who is watching? Alright. Alright, so I'm doing a few things today. Ooh, new patch. Look at this XYZ thing. That is super cool. And confusing. Ah, I see. It lines up with what's in the middle of your screen or which direction you're looking, but on the corner of your screen it looks kind of wrong. That's alright. Anyway, so components. There are a bunch of components in Core. And they are all here. I've made a lot of them. There's some bugs in them. So people found some use cases recently that they didn't like or caused problems, and I figured I would start to show how I fix those, which kind of shows how I build them. And there are a few minor things that shouldn't take too long, but we're going to go through them. So we've got, all right. So the biggest one that is in all of the frameworks and used in a lot of games is the kill feed. It tells you in the upper corner when players join and leave and when they die. People requested, it has a couple bugs, people requested a couple features on it. I'm going to try to do those things. There's one I added recently. I actually wrote it on stream, the fall damage component. It has a bad interaction with both itself and with the kill feed. It has problems. And I had a third one. Let me find it. You know, I'm not going to write that one. There's a couple things that the scripts are just badly named that I changed the name of the component, forgot to change the name of the script. That's simple enough and also doesn't really help to do it on stream because I'm going to copy it over another map anyway. It's the same work as just changing the script name. Okay, so let's look at these. So of note, if I, how do I want to do this? Let's go up here and hit shift equal so I spawn where my character is, and this is going to kill me when I hit the ground. Boop. Bam, error. Alright, so person has told me kill feed plus fall damage gives you an error. And here it is. Let's find out why. Alright, so the fall damage is pretty straightforward. So it watches your speed, and if you're on the ground, and if you hit the ground, and you were not previously in the ground, and you were moving, then it does damage to you. Great, that works. The reason for the damage is map. It's one of the built-in categories you can use. That's used for things like the kill feed, hopefully. In many old games, Doom and Quake and stuff, the kill feed had a, you killed yourself, you were killed by the wall, you were cratered. They had funny messages for this sort of thing because it was all text, right? Over these newfangled icons. All right. So that worked fine, isn't it? Error. But the kill feed didn't like it. Kill feed controller client even. On line 84. Aha. Expected string received nil. Okay. So it's saying, as a general statement, this might not be easy to read. I don't think I can make this bigger. It says error running load task, kill feed controller client 84. That is the line in the script. Right here. Stack index 1. Expected string received nil. So it's saying, and then it says bad argument into core object, open paren, string, close paren. So it's saying, here's a function. This is a function prototype. It returns a core object and it takes a string. That's find object by ID. It's the only function on this line. Sometimes when I'm looking at errors, I get a little confused. If I have a bunch of function calls inside of each other, you gotta be careful which one it is. Stack index 1 means the first argument. Well, there's only one argument, it's this one right here. Gotta be careful with functions that take colons, like set color, because this thing right here is implicitly the first argument, and that's the second argument, if it has a colon. In this case, there's only one argument, it's that guy. Expected string received nil. Okay, it's looking for an ability ID. An ID is a string, and instead it got nil. So somehow this function got called with ability ID as nil. Where does it get called from? Well, it gets called from kill feed internal. This is amazing, hasn't come up earlier. Apparently any kill feed internal message at all goes to here, tries to find this, and errors. If we look at kill feed server, where this event comes from, if it doesn't have an ability, there's no source ability, it passes nil. That was expected. Apparently that didn't come up very often, because I didn't actually handle this correctly on this side. So the way we had set this up is if there was no killer, then you just died. Don't worry about an ability. If there was a killer and ability, it says what killed you, and if there's killer and no ability, it says they killed you with no extra message. However, this line fails. Okay, so I want to. There's a few ways we could do this. We could, instead of passing nil, we could pass an empty string, which is a string type. And then when it calls here, this will be a valid function call, but it will fail to find the ability and it won't work. That might be a reasonable thing to do. We could pass nil and then check for it here. Maybe that's cleaner. Nil is a very clean nothing kind of thing. So instead, we're going to cut that. So if you have an ability 80, then this does the same thing. It sets the variable nil and then sets the variable right here. Let me make this bigger for you, sorry. And if you don't have one, then it leaves it as nil and it comes down here and prints the right thing. Okay, pause, stop that, come up here again. Top right corner, Surishmi died. No error, okay. And a lovely squishing sound. All right, so that is one out of the way. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of testing here with, there was a problem before. Let me show you this. So events have a size limit. They can only be 128 bytes, networked events. And the problem we had here was that this previously had some strings in it, like the ability name or the player name. And also this used to be longer. It was kill feed, kill something, something. And depending on your player name and what ability, a creator could use this thing and make an ability called the Mega Super Awesome Death Laser, and then it doesn't fit in the thing and the broadcast fails and you never get to see when you kill someone with that. So I changed this to be constant size things. Players are always the same size, IDs are always the same size. Hopefully this all fits always. But when it passes the player, it's just passing an ID underneath the hood. So we're going to try to test this a little bit. I got a report that it didn't work when it was published, which is actually kind of surprising. And I'm not completely convinced, but we're gonna at least test it. So we have two small points in different teams. By default, you're in team versus mode, so you can fight each other. We need a weapon. We get a static player equipment. Drag that in here. Advanced rifle. Sure, why not? Oop, all right. So now, if I test with two players, should be able to shoot each other and watch skill feeds. How unfortunate, spawns in the same team. You can tell without the nameplates because I can run through each other. My gun's making no sound. I found an interesting bug. I will report that bug. The bug is that I didn't actually drag this into my scene, so my game doesn't have it. Like when I drag a component from the catalog into the map, it actually adds it as if I declare the template itself. Now it's here. And if I do this, it might be a different one, but hopefully it makes sound. Okay. That's an interesting bug. All right, now different teams. Bot 1 kill bot 2 is shoot. Bot 1 kill bot 2 is shoot. Both see it. Should probably put some respawn settings in this map so that it's easier to test. Settings, respawn settings. Sure, in place. Nope, round robin. If I do in place, then I fall off the map and reset. I guess it doesn't kill you if you fall off the map. Kill zone. Move that down a little bit. Give it a good. Take the trigger. Give it a good scale. So now if I fall off the map, it kills me. This will be relevant when I publish because its iteration's a lot slower when you publish, right? Okay. So we're gonna go to publish the game. Bugfixes, test. Tags, simulation, sure, why not? Screenshot. Okay. I'll make it private. I don't need people to find a game that does nothing. I'm pretty careful about deleting games when I if I publish something that's or template or game that is temporary, I will delete it when I don't need it. All right, so now I'm here and I don't have a second player, which is unfortunate. I didn't really think that through. I can have a second account, or I can. There's 3 people viewing. Does one of you want to join me? Let me find the URL that I just ignored. Maybe it copied my thing already. Nope, sure didn't. All right, give me a second. I'll find this game. I found it. How do I get the URL of the actual game? Aha! I found it. Alright. Hang on. Anyway, we'll wait for a minute, see if someone wants to join. If not, I'll try to launch another client myself. Basically, just want to see, does the kill feed work in the simple case? Is it certain things that make it not work? Maybe the people were using abilities or ways to kill people that had the same problem that the fall damage did, and so it was causing a script error and not actually creating a line in the kill feed at all, but it wasn't obvious when it was published because you don't see that. What else do I have on here? Aha, I'll have to go find my notes for that. There were some suggested improvements that I think are very big. So we'll do those in a second. Where did they go? Aha, yes, okay. Found it. Basically, the feedback is, if you're making a game that's a shooter, all your guns have an ability called shoot. And when you kill someone, it says you killed so-and-so with shoot. And that doesn't make sense. You care more about the equipment, not the ability. And so what I'm going to do is add an option to it that if you would rather show the equipment, it will look for equipment that are parents of the abilities, and if they exist, then it will show that instead, and we'll just use whatever name it has. All right, no one is joining. Can I launch a second copy of this? Not without a bunch of steps. Our testers would probably be able to do this in no time, right? They have set up to have multiple accounts and everything. We'll come back to this later. I'm going to assume that it's the same problem for now, and back to editing. All right. So when I did a single player preview, or multiplayer preview, in fact, you'll see that it just says shoot. Okay. So, kill feed. De-instance, we can change it. Boolean show equipment name. Add a tooltip. This will use equipment names, abilities. The will come from equipment. Okay. So, the question is, do we do this in the client or the server? It's currently it passes the ability ID and the client finds that ability. We could look for the parent, but it's possible the client will get that later and things have already changed. Like you fire a rocket at someone and hit them, and right in the time that it takes for the message to get to the client, you've dropped the rocket launcher and picked up an assault rifle, then it's very confused. I'm not actually sure what kind of edge cases might exist there, but we want to be careful of that sort of thing. So instead, I'm going to do this on the server, which currently has no custom properties at all. That's amazing. All right, I guess we add one. So component root, similar to how the client script works, it's going to have that. Let me paste one line in here first, and then another line. If we look at the client script, you'll see component root looks like that. And show equipment name. All right, and because this is an official component, it's got these nice comments in here. All right. So if damage objects have certain properties on them. Chrome, where are you? Way down here. Core API. Damage objects. Know how much damage, the reason, source ability, and the player. So all I got is the ability, so I have to trust that to get the equipment from me, or for me. So I'm going to put this inside of that case. Oops. Because otherwise we don't have any data at all. We can't do anything useful here. So if you want to show the equipment name, instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is try to find the equipment. Local equipment nil. I think there's a find ancestor by type. Find ancestor by type. Hey, look at that. We don't have to write this function ourselves. Damage, source ability, weapon. Actually, equipment, right? Weapons are equipment. Equipments are not weapons, always. All right, if we have one of those, then instead of passing on the ability, we pass that. If it doesn't find one at all, let's actually move this outside of this loop. If it doesn't find anything at all, I do want to fall back to the ability. You could imagine an ability that's just spawned and given to a player without an equipment involved. You can even have abilities that actually don't have an owner at all, that get fired by something else. Like if you go to the core plaza level, there is cannons that fire on their own. If you made a game where those cannons hurt you, for example, that would be an ability that has no owner. So we've got the equipment here. If show equipment name and equipment, then we do that. Otherwise, we fall back. So if we try to find one and it's there. This is not very expensive, so even in the case where this is not true, whatever. Okay, so now the client script's got the same consideration. We need that line right there because we need to know what got passed to us. Actually, that doesn't even help us because it could pass either thing. We need to figure out what it is. Even if you do want to show equipment, it could be not equipment. We just need to look at what it is. I'm going to change this parameter to object ID. And is there a comment anywhere that says that I don't need to update? I have this pet peeve. It's a very common thing with new programmers that you get drilled in about how important comments are. People tend to write code without enough comments and make comments everywhere to make your code readable. And even if you think that you're the only person who's going to read it and you know what you wrote, it turns out that 3 months down the road, you're going to have no idea what you wrote. I've had multiple embarrassing occasions where I was looking at some code and criticizing the poor person who had written it, and it turned out it was me in the past, even with someone else watching me. Anyway, my counter to this is that comments can be negative. If you have a comment and then you change the code and forget to change the comment, that is worse than no comment. Because suddenly you have a comment that's going to lead someone astray and tell them something that's not true. So I try to be very careful about updating this sort of thing. All right, so this is now an object ID, not an ability ID. And So we're going to call this an object. Maybe I should call it like source object ID. Yeah, sure. Object is pretty general. All right, great. So now we have an object. In fact, this is great. We don't even care what it is. We don't have to change this code at all. I thought we were gonna have to do some if statement. If it's an equipment, great, you get the name. If it's ability, you get the name. Doesn't matter. Works either way. The only thing to think about now is does this make sense at the bottom? No, I'm actually gonna move it up a few lines. I like having colors all at the bottom so this doesn't get really unwieldy. If you look at the, we'll check these in a second. Nameplates. That's the wrong tab. How did my tabs get out of order? Nameplates. Look at all these colors. Show equipment, line duration. I'll move this all the way up to the top and then make sure that they're in the right order in here. So this one doesn't even read that property. This one doesn't read any other properties. That's fine. So that was shoot. Because I think I left it unchecked. Is that true? It was checked. Aha, this didn't work. All right, so it should have found something in broadcast the equipment ID, not the. Let's almost print. All right. So we're going to try to find the equipment. And that was the server script, so it will show up in the log at the bottom of the screen here. Weapon. They found a weapon. And then they said shoot anyway. So it found a thing. This is definitely true. This is definitely true. Show. Oh, no, that's not true. I need to read the property on the root. Okay, that's the problem. Advanced assault rifle. Sweet. All right, great. Kill feed probably fixed. I will figure out a way to test the published one later. And the fall damage. Okay, there are two more complaints about the fall damage that were definitely valid. One of those is, let's look at fall damage here. I'm going to update this guy. I'm going to make a ramp, a teleporter, like a teleporter. Boop, got a teleporter. This teleporter teleports you, no object, destination offset, 100 meters straight up. Okay. That'll help us test this. Ew. Ah. Splat. Okay. I'm also going to make a little bit of a ramp here so I can do very small falls. And get rid of one of my spawn points, or maybe just put them next to each other. Oops. So they're facing kind of near the same direction. Okay, worked. All right, so one complaint. Ooh, got an error. Well, I actually saw this one. I believe I already fixed this one even, just not in this version of it. 168. Yes, that is correct. I will fix it right here, but I have actually fixed this and it will be in the next build. So, all right. So the problems are at low speed, which I mean, maximum safe speed, lethal speed. If I set these numbers a lot lower, let's say 300. And I'll leave that one the same, just for testing. I was told this would hurt you when you respawned. Jumping should hurt you, that makes sense. I shouldn't be able to jump that high if it hurts you, but, you know, that's what it's doing. Didn't hurt me when I respawned. Maybe I had to be really low. Let's see if I can find the message again. Alright, less than 210 it says. So, fall damage. It's not less than 210. Look at 150. Took a little bit of damage there. Why do I have velocity when I respawn? I'm really close to the ground. I mean, is the spawn point actually just floating a little bit? Is that the problem? If I move these down a little bit, what would happen? I'm gonna change the max lethal speed down a lot so I die immediately. Spawn point's just floating a little bit. Okay, that seems alright. If you really want your max lethal speed to be, or your fall damage speed to be super, super low, then yeah, I guess you fall a little bit when you spawn. I'm okay with that. And if you're already dead, it does damage, is what I've been told. How am I going to test that? How does this even happen? How do you hit the ground when you're dead? Look, is there a way for me to fall off something as I die? Nope. Because if I hit the edge of it, it doesn't count as landing. Let's look at what it does. I'm going to try to play a sound, so it should be really obvious if this happens. I have a solution. A terrible, terrible solution. This teleporter will now teleport you directly above itself, so you'll just fall over and over again. Okay, not a problem. Need a little higher than that. Actually, I need you to hit the ground before it, isn't there a cooldown? Per player cooldown. Well, that's not going to work. I need to hit the ground before it teleports me. And if I put a cooldown on it, the way the cooldown works on this thing is that if you step into it and you're in cooldown, it won't teleport you at all, and it won't even, like, wait. It won't, like, teleport you when it's available. You have to, like, step out of it and back into it. If it's a little bit higher, it would kill me. That's kind of fun. I don't know how I'm gonna hit the ground. I'm gonna write a script here. Let's do that. Fall damage tester. Damager tester. Alright, what this script's gonna do. Function on player died. What's the event's called? Function on player joined. Player died event. Okay, so when you die, it's gonna teleport you. Five meters up in the air. Simple enough. So I die over here, teleports me up here, I fall one more time. And I respawn too fast. Respawn settings, 5 seconds. Doesn't do anything, no sound. Wonder why. I'm actually a little curious about this. Did I test for death? Is dead anywhere in here? No. Maybe you can't be grounded when you're dead? I'm kind of curious now. The client script probably doesn't check this, right? Yeah, it just takes the event and plays a sound. Simple as that. Let's... Alright, so string def format allows you to make a format string and pass some arguments in. There's no Boolean value, so you just two-string it and it turns into true or false. So we're just going to, every frame, see what's going on. It's grounded true, speed 0. Okay. Pause for a second here. So we jumped up in the air, speed went positive. Let's see. I think the speed is only downward. Let me see. Yes, max 0. So this is your downward speed, and I just clamp it. Fell faster and faster. I hit the ground. Bam. I had 900 speed. Now I'm grounded. I died. Speed 0 and grounded again. This is where it teleported me. Falling, 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 falling. That looks good. I see it. I'm not grounded. You can't be grounded when you're dead. In fact, I'm falling very fast. That is interesting. Okay. Well, there's our answer. It doesn't do that because you can't be grounded when you're dead. Probably a ragdoll thing? What's the game? Let's disable ragdoll on death. This does some pretty funny things. There we go. Played sound twice. Disabling ragdoll on death lets you move while you're dead. It really disables all the dead behavior. Okay, so let's add a check for that. That seems like we don't want that behavior. If not is player not is dead. Add that in that list of things. If you are dead, then it does nothing. And we will test. I'm dead. Okay, great. We've updated some components. That took half an hour. That is not very long. And I think I've hit everything I was going to do with that. So back to real game making. Warlocks over here. All right. So we were working on this last time. It's a game where we have these talent trees. I'll show you. You select some talents, they give you abilities, and then you play around, throwing spells at each other, trying to knock each other out of the arena, that sort of thing. And I had a whole bunch of problems that we're going to try to fix. And I got a blue hat and a blue staff. I didn't take any talents. Okay. So I wrote down a bunch of things last time. Let me close all these things I don't need. And wrote down some things in a document here. Clean up Mass Manifest. We did a bunch of experimenting. There's a bunch of crap in here. I'll worry about that later. Clean up current abilities. We'll do that today. Just to say, we threw together some abilities in the last minute there. Some of them were pretty good or functional enough. Some of them kind of have some pieces pulled in from other places, and I kind of want to make it follow the same patterns as everything else here and make sure they're robust. Add stat effect system. This is a big thing. It might actually be what we start doing today. I think this sort of game basically just requires this. You want to be able to poison players and freeze players and stun players and all that kind of stuff. If you have no status effects at all, it's not going to be fun. And if you don't have a system for it, what's going to happen is that your things will keep fighting each other in weird ways. Like you'll get stunned and then try and sprint at the same time, and the sprint will cancel the stun, but not in the way that you expected. You want the systems to know how to interact with each other. They all need to care about each other. So we're going to move that up. Cast powers and nameplates. Let's actually do that one first. And clean up Mass Manifest. We talked about that. Add many more abilities. Yes, we will do that. Stat effect system is pretty key in this. One ability we might make, we talked about an ice wall. Let me, cooler arena effects. Smoke crumbling. These things I thought about adding at some point. We'll do cast bars first. So the way this game works, this arena gets slowly smaller during the round, and all I did was just set scale or scale continuous, which looks lame. And I think that it would be cool to have an effect that we can add later. Ooh, I'm pink. Where segments of it like crumble and fall into the lava in a cool way. So we'll do that at a later time. And smoke. Talked about this smoke right now is just a bunch of little emitters trying to match the shape. I think there's some other ways we can do this that will help avoid the particle limits, because this is a lot of particles. There are, sort of at a low level, there are multiple different particle limits depending on what resource on your computer is being taxed making that system. And so the kind of hacks of use the right ones and you can get much more impressive things. I think if we take snow and turn it upside down and make it black, this might actually work really well. So we're going to try that. We'll do that later. Actually, I will, let's move that up here. Let's do cast bars, then smoke, then status effect. Alright, so the cast bar problem is this game has a kind of an RPG style casting. I take the fireball spell, as you can see. Where you sit in place and you have a cast bar, and if you move, it cancels your cast. And when your cast bar finishes, you throw a spell. Big cost sitting still. Makes sense. Okay. So the problem is, it's not very obvious when someone else is doing this. This animation is good, but it's not as clear. Like, that's all you got. And I think there might even be, well, yeah. The animation is not enough to know what they're casting, what spells they took, that sort of thing. You want to have some readability. So on our nameplates, I wanted to show what the other person's casting. Have a cast bar visible. This is pretty common in WoW, for example. Nameplates often show buffs, debuffs, nameplates, all sorts of stuff like that. Well, actually, let's see this from the other point of view. Red mage meets slightly darker red mage. Alright, so here I come on the, if you look at the top left screen. You can't tell where I'm aiming at all. Like, you have to kind of like see my head's angle, and that's really pretty limiting. Oh, also, ooh, that is a good thing to notice. I can move around while I'm casting the spell. I almost wonder if I want to do something where where when you start to cast, you have to pick a spot. I don't know. We'll think about this. Also, you can jump and take less damage out there. We'll fix that later. Alright, so the goal here is to make it a little bit more readable. First thing is going to put the cast bar on the nameplates. That's not too bad. What we're going to do is go into here, find cast bar and nameplates, and kind of shoehorn them together. Alright, so nameplates spawn a nameplate object. This shoehorning is going to be a little harder than it sounds. There's a nameplate helper template, which is a white box. I will show you, let's nameplates, show on self. And let's, app logic. Alright, so I'm making the second test really quickly and show you. Alright, so here's my nameplate. If I pause, it snaps to an angle, but there it is. It's literally in 3D space. It's a bunch of cubes floating over my head. I should have used planes, doesn't really matter. They're basically the same. Anyway, so there are cubes floating over my head here. And that's what this is. This is a bunch of cubes that can be used to turn into a nameplate. So we need to add a little bit to it. What I want to do is move the name up a little bit and have a thing in between that maybe has a border, but as just cast, and maybe has text in the middle that says what spell it is. So we're going to kind of copy the structure here. So this has border, background, health, change, and then some text. Okay. Change is when you take damage, it turns that area that you took colored for a second, or if you heal, it turns out a different color for a second. We don't need that piece in the cast bar. And we do need a bunch of pieces that will, I'm going to make a group in here, that will all become visible at the same time. New group. Okay. cast bar. So we can hide it when they're not casting. And it's going to have border, background, health, except for it's not going to be health, it's going to be cast progress. And we're going to, how far up is this? 20. We're going to move this up to 40 and copy this guy into here and set it 20 and call it spell name text or cast name text. Ability name text. Okay. Great. This needs references to every single one of these because I need to hide the cast bar itself. I need to move and change all the other pieces. So ability name text, border piece, cast border piece, cast background piece, cast progress piece. Okay. So we're gonna update that. These custom properties, we don't need to. Oh man, it took away this. I need that. All right, so now we're gonna look at the nameplates. See this big block of stuff. In here, so nameplates are a fairly sizable component, but in here it makes a table that has all the pieces we need and puts them in the right places. We're gonna add to this. Cast bar. So we don't need, these we already have. Our group. Okay, basically that pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cast border piece. Cast background piece. Cast progress piece, and I should just call that cast name text. Consistent. Again, this is just a thing for this game. Don't need this most of the time. It is something I could add in a more formal form if it was really useful. I haven't seen many other games using the cast system quite like this before. Well, I think it'll be useful generally in the future. All right, and I have to, oops, I actually needed those. All right, so the way this works is there's a giant tick function down here that updates things on the fly, and this is all the things that are static. So for the group doesn't do anything. We're just leaving it there to hide and show. That will be in the tick function. The name changes in the tick function because you could cast different spells. The progress piece changes in the tick function because your cast progress changes. And we are going to use, actually let me add this to the list. Okay, we'll use this text to also show when someone cancels the cast or interrupts or whatever. You might even add an interrupting mechanic. It's a very central mechanic to WoW. But these two, the background and the border, we can set them right now. We can put them down here. They're never going to change. They'll be hidden, but they're never going to change. And we don't have a property for this because this is for this game only. So first thing I'm going to do is make it invisible. By default, you're not casting. Oops. Ability dot force off. Okay. Then border piece and background piece. Let's look at where the other ones went. Set scale, set position, set color. Okay, so we can do copy these guys. They'll be almost the same. Position's just gonna be a little bit higher, otherwise the same. And background piece, scale, position, color, same deal. So the scale should be exactly the same. Makes sense. It should match. So 2 health bars right off each other. Hopefully that looks good. Maybe we want it to be a little smaller. We'll see. Maybe we probably want the progress piece to be a different color. We'll deal with that when we get there. I guess the color can be set here because it's never changing. It could be the color of the ability. What do abilities have with them? We talked about this last time. Templates, something abilities. Meteor ability. I wanted the equipment, right? Oops. They had a set ability icon. So each thing has an icon associated with it and a name, but they don't have colors associated with them. We'll worry about that later. In some games, you could imagine that the School of Magic or something would show there, especially if that's fundamental to the gameplay. If we were copying WoW, for example, when you interrupt a spell, it usually cancels that, like prevents them from casting the same School of Magic. So if you're fighting a Fire Maiden, you counter the Fireball, they can't cast Fire Blast or Pyroblast or whatever for a while, but they can cast Frostbolt if they, are ready to. A lot of times people aren't. In our game, we don't have the mechanic, so we'll worry about it later. We'll just make the cast bar yellow, let's say. It's just fine. We can set color dot yellow. That's not even really bright. I'll try it later. Do I do anything with the name text here? Visibility text. Visibility, okay. I don't want to set the colors on that. Excuse me. Okay, so we need to put them not exactly on top of the other ones. We want them off by a little bit. So the variables we have here, nameplate, that's the border width, health bar height. So we want to, in classic style, I'll bring this up. All right. So there's the border of the first one. Here's the border of the second one. If we move it so it lines up perfectly with this double border in the middle, that looks bad. I think we want a single border in the middle. So it's going to overlap a little bit. I think that's fine. So we want exactly 1 border plus 1 health bar width, I think. We'll make sure that the health bar width doesn't include. Yes, okay. So set position. X coordinate is the one that's towards and away from the camera. So we're going to take health bar width plus that. I believe Y, we want this up. No, Y is to the right. We want this up. C, and we're going to take the 2.0 out of there. I think that I wrote some lines that don't fit in my... Oh, okay. So hopefully these are in the right position. We're going to have to do some testing here. This will take a little bit. Scale, position, color. Scale, position, color. Yeah, all right. So then we need to, down in our tick function, if we have a nameplate, if it's visible, if it's not visible, then don't do anything. If we're showing health bars, so I don't actually care if we're showing health bars. We're always showing this because it's in this version. We're going to, in here, if player, how do we tell someone's playing? That we're at casting. This is the update cast bar. How does the cast bar work? That's why I was going to look at the other one and compare the two. All right, now look at all their abilities. Bam. All right, let's just copy this whole brick of text over here. That's just a, yeah, okay. You can just see these. I don't know if you can tell. There's spaces and tabs. This is horrible. Don't do this. People will judge you. All right. So player instantly is always named player. Go through all the things. If they have a cast ability, if they have ability that's in the cast phase, great. Remaining time, total time. If their total time is less than min cast time, so there's a little bit of grace period. I'm going to have to copy that property off here. Min cast time. Oh, it's actually a component root property. Look at that. Okay, I see why. So we don't show, if someone had a spell that has a very low cast time, and most of the instant cast abilities in core have like a 0.2 second cast to me, we don't want to show the cast bar at all. So we're just going to put, if it's less than a second, don't bother showing it. All right, so then this stuff. And we don't want to return, we want to break. That'll break us out of the for loop, the thing you can break out of, so we don't keep looking for more abilities. Okay, so the question is, what do we actually want to update here? So we actually, it's called nameplate here, not nameplates, :player. Hindsight, I feel like I could have, in this function, I could have made a table called nameplate and at the very end stuck it in this. That would have been way cleaner. I'm not going to change this now. This is why when I work on personal projects, it takes a long time. I find lots of things I could update and fix and improve all the time. All right, so the first thing we want to do, basically we want to copy these 5 names. So I'm just going to copy these 5 lines down. Boop. All right. And put a counter on them. This is I need these. So nameplate dot castbar group dot visibility. So this is where we find out that we actually do have a cast. Otherwise we don't. I could save a Boolean variable and say, did we find one, and then down here set the visibility. It's not expensive to set visibility off and then on again in the same frame. In fact, I'm pretty sure it does basically nothing. I could be wrong about that. This is an easy enough pattern, and I haven't seen problems yet, but you turn it off, and then if you find one, you turn it back on again. Okay. So that's family of the group. Border piece, background piece, we're not touching those. They're now visible. Progress piece. Nameplate.progress piece. We don't need to do anything with visibility because it just got turned on. Progress is, it's funny. This is for a progress bar. We don't have one of those. We have a hit cube, so we need to do some scaling on it. We'll look down in a second to do that. And then the name, nameplate.text. And we don't need to do the visibility again, same reason. We just need to show the ability name. Okay, pretty simple. So, health bar fraction. Position, no change piece. We don't need the change piece. We need animate changes. Here we go. This right here. This does the same thing with the health bar. We're just gonna do the same thing. I'm trying to remember what health fraction is versus visible health fraction. And does one of them change in here? Well, health fraction doesn't change. No one changes here. Oh, yeah, okay. Visible health fraction. If you were healed and you're animating the changes, you need to not. That's plus change fraction negative is okay. I see why. I could draw a picture of this. Basically, you go from 50 health to 100 health. The health bar still needs to stay at 50 until it animates, because the 50 that you just healed should be a different color, a different piece, so that it animates its way up. That's what this is for. But that's fine. In our case here, we just take the same thing. So we're gonna call this cast progress. And then use it here and here. And cast progress offset. All right, so this is almost correct. We need to move this third argument again like we did before. Up here. Right here. This whole thing to be above. So this math for us, I'm just trusting my former math, that it sets the scale and position correctly so the piece looks like a progress bar. Set the text and break out of there, and script errors incoming. I wasn't fast enough. Okay, almost. Not high enough up. See that? So it shows a cast bar. It's got the name. But the cast bar is only slightly above the other cast bar, or above the health bar. It should be a whole segment above. Why? Who knows? I believe this is one of those ones where you need a 50 in there. Maybe. It has been a long time since I worked with this stuff. Yeah, these are units of scale. And if you're looking at position, you need to multiply by 50. Let's see how that looks. That might be extreme. It seemed like it was a little bit higher than I expected, given that. But we'll add that in. Way too much. Why is it way too much? Okay, because that's width and not height. And I didn't put parentheses in it. Well, that's just terrible. I should be ashamed of myself. Because I just found 2 bugs, and I'm not even convinced these are all the bugs I have. Oh, in fact, yeah. Border width is still width, because it's border width. It's really border thickness. Well, that's closer. Not quite where we need it. Why? Why? Okay, this looks like about halfway as far, maybe 100. Because the scale of a cube is 1 meter to a side. Maybe 50 is if you're trying to move it, you know, from the center to something. Why did my headset just turn off? It literally played a sound like 5 seconds ago. Too slow. Hey, look at that. Alright, so I want the text to look like the health text, not like the name text. So it's way too big, wrong color. I guess I want it to be dark. Let's look at this. We'll make it black. We'll make it 0.3 scale. These are 3D text object. It's not the UI text object. Update that. It's too high. Makes sense. I just put it halfway to the name, and the name was okay. The name could even be like 25, maybe. We're gonna do some guessing here. Let's try 8. Try to make it look good. I don't even know where it went. The name looks okay. I think the name needs a little bit more. Maybe 30. 8. Let's try 12. See if it appears magically. I think it's behind something. Oops. I think the name needs a positioning. So the background and the border are -3, -2. Ah, here we go. Health text has a set position. We need to do that with cast name text. Oh, I see. We can actually set it just in the right place if we wanted to, as opposed to trusting the whatever I put in here. That seems like a good idea. So we take this exact same value here, there. Look at that, fireball. That'll be not at all readable from far away. That's all right. Well, that looks really awful with the cast bar over it. That looks okay when you get close. I had other things. Okay. So we're gonna delete this guy. Nameplates, hide on self again. Back to multiplayer testing. Ooh, I didn't get a spell on either character. Let's give me a few seconds to figure that out. Both have fireball. Okay. So now if I see the other guy, you can see I'm casting the cast bar over my head. It's a little hard to see what. Let's see if I'm gonna drag one of these off to another monitor and then back full screen the other one. I want to see how readable this is. Okay, you can't tell I'm casting at all, but you can tell I'm casting something. That's good. That's a good starting point. We could do something with icons, I think, here. In fact, the abilities already have icons associated with them. There's an API for that, so we could probably display the icon on the left side, for example. We can make the cast bar a lot bigger. The health bar is already kind of hard to see. Yeah. I should also bring in the new segmented nameplates to this map, so that you can tell how much health someone has. Because really most of the talents will increase your health. Okay, well, we're making progress here. Cast bars on nameplates. They're sort of there. Let us get that a little more. That's actually a lot harder than it sounds. Showing the icon. The icon is a UI thing, so it's 2D, and the nameplates are 3D. When I first built these, I put a lot of effort into making a 2D nameplate variant as well, but we ended up not needing it. 3D nameplates worked almost all the time, and now there's a case where I think that would actually be really helpful. It would show you them people through walls, but that's kind of okay in this kind of game. Basically, I looked at how games worked, and games like Overwatch and I can't remember the other ones, League of Legends maybe? The nameplates are actually 3D space, so if you run into things, they go into walls and that sort of thing. But in certain games, they are not. They're simple. I don't actually remember which games they were. So yeah, let's not worry about that now. That is harder to do. Interrupts. All right, so I had the system last time where, let's find the script. Interrupt, moving interrupt. This fires cast interrupt event and a cast bar message event that this is interesting. I didn't think this through entirely. Okay, so basically, the client can, if you try to move, it can fail the cast. And this, I was expecting this message to show up somewhere on your own cast bar, for example, and we never actually implemented that. It'd be cool to show it on those ones as well. So my first thing looking at this is like, we checked if we were the local player for this case, but not this case. So this is definitely a very local player centric thing. You cannot look at other. There's a very strange bug here where this tries to interrupt something that's not yours. I think we just need to move that into here. Simple enough. If you're not the ability owner, then don't touch it. If you can't cast, when you try to cast, if you can't cast, then interrupt immediately and say cast failed. And if you are already casting, then we just sit here and watch, we loop, can cast, can cast, can cast. And if at any point you can't, it's interrupted. All right, so let's go to our own cast bar first and then worry about the other ones. Our own cast bar is pretty easy. These only go to yourself. These are client only on the person who owns the ability. So our cast bar here has a nice text box. So we wrote on cast bar message. Cast bar is one word. Right? No, it's 2 words. Look at that. Yep. That's connect. All right. So if this message comes in, we need to change our text for a little bit. You're presumably not casting then. So we could do something very simple. All right, I'm gonna write the implementation that doesn't work, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. All right. So all I did is when you interrupt a spell, it reads that and sends a text for a second. Whole thing hides. Doesn't work at all. Oof. All right, so we need to make this a little smarter. Local cast bar message. Cast bar message time. The tick function needs to be aware of this so it doesn't do its other things and fight it. It's basically the problem here. So all we're going to do is this is set the message and the time. Then here, if we have one of these, we're going to do this instead of everything else we're doing. Player. Who's player? Get view player. Okay. So this enables spectator mode. We haven't even talked about that. Yeah, there's no spectator at the moment. There's a bunch of pieces of spectator mode available that mostly work. There's a couple problems with it, but it would be convenient. They're generally written so that if you're spectating someone, you get to see their UI for the most part. Okay. So, for spectating a player, I guess that's not gonna. Moving interrupt only happens for your own abilities. You're not gonna see it when you're spectating someone. It really only looks at your local player. So maybe we just forget this entirely. For now, if we just leave it in, it'll always be yourself as long as we don't have other spectator components. If we try to add spectator later, we can fix these bugs as we find them. That seems fine. So the question is, do we have a cast bar message? If we do, in fact, we don't even need a player for this. Okay. So the idea is, if you have a message, how am I gonna? Sometimes the way I do this is I just say, hey, are we in this time window? If so, then do a thing. I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm actually going to clear out the message when this doesn't happen. So this is saying, this is when we got the message. If we add a second to that, has time gone past that? Has it been more than a second? If so, then we zero this out. Easy. But the first thing we do before we do any of that is actually handle this. If there's a message, then we need these two lines. We set the text to our message and set the visibility. I could set it once. This is going to set it a bunch of times. Again, that's not very expensive, and it's an easy way to write this. Some people really identify with like trying to catch all the events. You know, they look for all the changes in state and try to write their code to handle that. And I feel like that's a really it feels inefficient to do things repeatedly, to set the same variable over and over again to the same value. But dealing with the events leads to a bunch of really hard to debug bugs, and bugs that are really bad, in that like you handle 3 cases of ways the players can die and forget one more, and then when players do that, they get stuck in the wrong state, and they get stuck in the wrong state for a long time. Like that just is really broken until you find every single case, and sometimes you really need to handle a lot of weird edge cases to make this work. And sometimes you have to write things that way because that's the only way to make it actually fast enough. When you can just check every frame and update things, you tend to have far fewer bugs. And it makes sense in my mind. So the text will appear, but the bar will disappear. Let's see what this looks like. All right. The entire thing disappeared again. Why though? Why? Oh, because I set it to force off, not inherit. That's why, though. Cast interrupted. Boop. All right. Actually, one more thing I'm going to show you. The other one still works. If I'm in an invalid state, if I'm running when I try to cast, cast failed, cast failed, cast interrupted. All right, so that should be red. That's easy enough. Text box set color that red, and if we're setting it anywhere else, we set it back to white. It's enough. You could do a thing where the cast bar itself fades out or something like that. I think that this is fine. All right. What else we have? Broadcast to server. We have a bug here that I want to think about and come back to. This ends a networked event every time you click, and there's no cooldown. So if I'm running and just spamming the button, why is this not giving me errors? This should be more than, I should click more than 10 times a second, right? I don't know. Well, it's letting me do it. Okay, I expected errors. I expected this to broadcast 10 times and say you can't do that. I don't actually know why I can't. Why it's not doing that. Maybe the actual loop, it doesn't let me cast the ability when it thinks it's already casting. So I can't do that often. Let's see, print time. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10. I'm really close to 10 a second. Why is this not giving me warnings? I'm disappointed if you don't get warnings in single player preview. Maybe. Oh, we're still full screen. Look at that. Actually, I need this to be not Full screen. Shrink. Shrink. All right. So nothing at all, except for it's in the client log. Which, let's see where those would go. Sorry, I'm finding the logs 1 second. All right. So in the core games, go into Documents, My Games Core. And if you go there, Save Logs, there's a platform 2, which is the first client. Here it is, the log file. There's a bunch of times. No warnings. There's a bunch of errors when you close preview mode. We talked about that. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know one with guaranteedly 11. Apparently I can click about 10 times a second. But at 8, I think it's supposed to be giving me warnings, so I'm baffled. I'll make a note of that. All right. So that is pretty good shape. I think trying to get the interrupt messages on all the other clients comes with a bunch of difficulty, but it's still really cool. So let me think about this a little bit. There's actually some cheap things we could do here. Oh, this is great. We don't even need to broadcast events. Well, we want to differentiate between failed and interrupted. Maybe. Maybe we don't. All right. So Google tells me that I misspelled this. I was like, these are spelled differently. One of these is wrong. I figured it out. Where is the other half of that? I don't remember. Let's look at one of our abilities. Fireball ability. Oh, that's right. There's a single script that handles this for everyone. There is ability interrupt server, that guy. Okay. I even spelled it correctly in the function. Whoops. I have found some code in real games that shows someone misspelled the variable name and it just got copy and pasted and used everywhere, and it's, you know, awkwardly misspelled in 100 places. That drives me nuts. All right, so basically what I'm saying is if I didn't care which way this interrupted, you can tell that an ability interrupted by simply just watching it every frame and saying, was it in the cast phase and now it's in the ready phase? Well, if you look at the ability phases, ready, cast, execute, recovery, cooldown. If it goes from cast to ready, it got interrupted. If it didn't get interrupted, it would have gone to execute, and then recovery, then cooldown. So you know when it got interrupted without having an event to tell you, in which case you can show it on every player's screen without having to look at that sort of thing. And that's actually probably worth changing how this works. It's a little bit worse in visual, but it also works in the nameplates, which I like a lot. So, all right, this thing I just wrote doesn't work anymore because there's no cast part message. Let's rewrite this. Let's write this thing that we just wrote. All right. So when it finds an ability that you're casting, comes in here. Actually, we can do this in a slightly more efficient way. Basically, I'm going to save off this ability. The question is, do I want to do it inside of this min cast time? If you cast a very short spell and somehow manage to interrupt it, it should have had a cast part in the first place. It probably doesn't matter. Min cast time realistically should be a lot less than a second. But that's what it is by default. We can 1.3. There we go. Now it's less. All right, so inside of here, we save it off. So now we know what's being cast. Okay, and then if casting ability and casting ability get current phase equals ability phase ready. So it says, hey, we just interrupted it. Then we're going to cast interrupted, change the text, and local interrupt time. We're going to rearrange this logic a little bit. So if there's interrupt time, that means it just got interrupted. We want to just wait. So we're going to move this logic into here. If there's interrupt time, then we wait a second. If we waited a second, then interrupt time equals nil. And I'm going into a little bit of a stateful thing here, which is what I talked about before. In some cases, it's like it could be a little worse, but it could be a little better in some ways. So basically, if there's an ability and it's in ready phase, we nail this out here. Okay. Then as soon as it's in ready phase, we say, hey, got interrupted, set the stuff, clear it out. If there's no interrupt time at all, then we want to do nothing. And if neither of those is true, then we want to go back to the old behavior, which includes these things inside of here. In fact, I'm going to put this up here and that one inside there. This will work, probably. This isn't the cleanest implementation, but hopefully it works. This function no longer exists at all. Those variables don't exist. Event doesn't exist. All right, let's see what horrible monstrosity I've just made. Cast interrupted. Okay, if I'm moving. All right, so it's not doing anything here because it never even got to the cast phase. That's okay. Apparently, if you try to interrupt the cast immediately, okay. So it's a little bit hacked, but it works. We should test multiplayer, or at least a single multiplayer client, to make sure it still works and it does something dependent on. I've written some code where I look at it later in the day or the next day and say, man, that really doesn't work at all in multiplayer. Okay, so it still works. Now we want our nameplate cast browse to do the same thing. So in all of this stuff I just wrote, update cast bar. So we're going to do similar logic here. So this is one script for all nameplates, and it needs to be per nameplate. And since we're using a table that's called nameplate, we don't need to initialize some values as nil, because something not being in a table and something being nil in a table are the same thing. We're basically just going to copy some of this logic. And it's not going to work at all because of different variable name stuff will make it work. All right. All right. So if there's an interrupt time, which there isn't by default, then we wait till a second later and nil. If there is a casting ability, and that casting ability is a ready phase, then we take this text box and do stuff with it. It's no longer a, actually not a text box anymore, it's a 3D text object, but they have the same two fields, luckily. And we set the interrupt time. And setting this to nil is removed from the table. Same thing up here. You could, I think there's like a table, there might be other ways to do that. This works fine. And then what's the third case? Else if player. In this case, we already have a player. We're just going to do an else and indent this entire thing. And we need to say, hey, we knocked down this a lot, 2.3. We need to set the casting ability inside that. All right, same logic. So we do the same thing for the cast. If we get one, we set it. If we get one, but it's not in the ready phase, we got interrupted instead. And we get interrupted, we set the time, in which case come up here, run for a second, and go away. When that ends, we need to move the visibility, right? Because the entire thing is going to be invisible unless we tell it to be visible. So it becomes visible in here. In fact, if any of these is true, it's visible, right? I guess this makes it invisible once that goes away. A way to do this is take this line down here. This is gonna be hard to read. Whatever. And yeah, we'll invert this logic. Okay, so defaults to be on, and then we say, okay, do we have an interrupt time? If so, do some things. If it's been interrupted, do some things. If we found an ability, do some things. If none of those were true, oh, this is always true, that you can't have two else's. I see the problem here. Back up, back up, back up, back up. All right, so this only becomes visible if it finds something. We just need to put this in all three cases. Gross. Okay. I could turn it off here when I do that, but what's going to happen is it's going to get interrupted, and then the next time around, it's just going to turn stuff off again. Yep, okay, this should work. One more thing, we set its color to red and we didn't set it back. So when you get to the next valid cast, it should be black again, I believe was the color I picked. Again, we're kind of hard coding things that previously had not been hard coded. No, I don't have a nameplate, and it didn't like that anyway, 266. Ah yeah, what is that else doing down there? It's the one I said I couldn't have. All right, so we're gonna show the nameplate ourselves for testing. Cast interrupted. We could turn the whole bar red and keep the text black, cast being, the bar freezing is actually really sweet. I like that a lot. But I kind of wish the main cast bar did that. Huh. Yeah, let's progress piece. Let's change your color. Yellow. All right. So up here, cast progress piece set color. Don't need that anymore. It's gonna get overridden as soon as it appears. Put this up a line. So that stays black. The progress bar changes colors. I wonder if the cast bar at the bottom of my screen should have a similar effect with the text over the middle. I like the cast bar turning red and freezing, and being yellow. Let's do some things to the cast bar. It really doesn't have a lot of options here. Let's make you yellow. Yellow. The most yellow you can be. All right. What interrupts? Text box. Nope, we're going to do progress bar again. Same deal. So the right way to do this, if I was sharing this code a little bit, which I'm basically not, so I'm doing this in a hacky way, would be to read the color up here and remember what I set so that I can still change this color out here. Or to make a custom property, sort of thing. For now, just storing it right here. The more you're working by yourself and the more you're not, like the more you can just put things right in the code because you can change them yourself. Just don't put them more than one place. Or try to avoid it. Alright, so I'm changing the color of the progress bar now, but I need to make the progress bar not hide. So I need it to have the same visibility as the text box, which is right here. So we're going to move that down there. I just realized I have a bug in this. I'll show you. It'll become obvious when the cast bar is here. Well, I have a bug that'll give me an error. Cast bar client 70. Oh yeah, of course. You can't set color on a progress bar because progress bars have more than one color. UI progress bar set. Oh, I guess it's just fill color. Oh, that's fine. All right. All right. Oh, it worked. It actually did hide itself. Cool. All right, so I think I'm gonna take the cast bar text, move it down, and make it black. How is this top center, bottom center panel? Huh. 44. Let's make you 40. And make you 40. Put the text box below. And make the font size 18 maybe. Middle center, middle center. I'm doing that so that the text lines up perfectly. Oh, it didn't actually work as well as I wanted to. That's good enough. Okay, we'll update our template from that. Cool. That was interesting. So I get a cast interrupted. When the cast completes, I didn't clear the variable. So when it goes back to, there you go, to ready, like the normal way. Only in one of them though. Okay, see the bug. So the castbar client says casting ability to nil as soon as it interrupts. And huh. Why doesn't it have the same bug? Probably because of the frame delay, maybe? There's a lot of assumptions in this code about only having one ability cast at a time, which is true, but it feels a little bit like it's looking for all the abilities when really we could just, as soon as you find one, you could just track that one ability until it's no longer casting and then go look again, which would probably be a little bit better way to write this. I don't think it matters at the moment. Let's see. How do we want to catch the case where we've moved off of out of the ready phase into a phase, or out of the cast phase into, basically we check this in two ways. Casting ability and phase is not cast. If I can't do that. All right. So we make those two checks. Basically, if you're not in the cast phase, are we in the ready phase? If so, do the interrupt thing. Otherwise, and either way, clear it. We're going to do the same thing for the nameplates. I'm going to copy this over right there. Nameplate.casting ability. Looks basically the same. Whoops. And indent all that. Okay. So we cast fireball correctly. Comes off cooldown. Nothing. Interrupt. Interrupt. Cool. Like it. I'm going to turn nameplates back to not unself and try 2-player. See if that works in multiplayer. And then we're going to go on to the next great adventure. I didn't get it. Excuse me, we'll try it again. We're about to take Fireball. It's hard to test without having a spell. Got a testing plan where you have to click quickly. Alright. I'm gonna do the guy. Excuse me. And I'll cough there. As you get close, you can see the cast bar, you see it interrupts. The question of like, if I just interrupted and start casting again, should it show the cast? I think the reality is that it should hold the interrupt, but just the duration's too long. I think 1 second is too long. I think it should be half as long. I realize that I have duplicate code here. That's all right. Let's try the single player and then move on. Okay. So the half second is enough that you really don't. You can see that was interrupted. Maybe it could be like 0.6 or 0.7, but you're not missing a lot of the next cast. It's not going to trick you by being a lot of the way into a cast. Okay. Cool. We've got a thing that works. Let's do interrupts. Cast powers on nameplates. Done, done. Smoke. Yeah, alright. So that's a clever idea. I was talking before about limitations on particles. The simplest form is CPU and GPU. Some particle systems are on the CPU. They are fairly limited. CPUs are fundamentally a lot slower than GPUs. This is not obvious to people, maybe. GPUs are very parallel. They have just tremendously more computational power than your CPU, but it's in a way that it has to run a lot of stuff at once, and it's not very generally useful, which is why we still have powerful CPUs and why a lot of things still run just on the CPU. And they're also just fast enough to, you know, if you're running Microsoft Word in a browser or whatever, your CPU is plenty fast. But if you go to like data centers where people are doing all sorts of machine learning and stuff, it's a lot of GPUs. So GPU-based particle system, which is a very parallel task, a bunch of particles doing the same thing independently, very fast. All right, so Blizzard. Ooh, this is a GPU-based snow system. You see there's some tiny little snow coming out of here. This thing can run a whole lot of snow. So we're gonna try to make it huge. Let's look at advanced settings. Local space, doesn't matter, sort priority. In front or behind other transparent objects, don't care. Distance field. All right, we'll see about that. GPU-based particle systems tend to collide with the depth buffer. So it has a very strange effect. Let me see if I can, do I have the map I can show you this with? Yes, Core Plaza, here we go. This is very funny to me. And it looks like I'm showing you a bug, but this is intentional. VFX in all games are very cleverly designed to work exactly in your situations, and you know, the VFX artists are very good at making things that look really good. Look at these fountains, they look sweet, right? Hit V, and the gizmos appear on my screen, and they block the particles. These little stars are blocking the fountain. The reason is the GPU doesn't have access to the 3D data as easily, or it's much slower. And what it does have is on your screen, every frame when it renders, it knows exactly the depth into your screen that each pixel is. And that's very easy to read from. So it looks at that, and when you have a gizmo on screen, that's it. There's no exempt things. The things are there, and they're right to it. So you get some funny collision, but it probably is fine. I want this to have stuff shooting upwards. So we have our blizzard volume. We can do a lot of things. Ooh, we can't make it go up. That's interesting. A lot of these have a gravity setting. I thought this would have one, but it doesn't seem to. That's gonna make this a lot harder to do. Boost color, kind of reddish. This looks pretty sweet though. Density. All right, so what I was gonna do is make this thing enormous. How big is that compared to our area? All right, so the density is not actually a density. It's a just the raw number of particles. I've talked to the VFX guy about this a bunch, and he went back and forth on it and basically came to the conclusion that this is the way that he wanted these things to work. For a variety of reasons, but the naming isn't perfect. If you're a guy who, you know, knows physics and that sort of thing, you're going to say that's not what that means. Well, that's kind of what it means. All right, make it a little bit bigger. You see that it's still not having that much trouble. Like, it's filling the entire area with particles. This looks super cool, by the way. Maybe we just do this and have it go down. I'm going to move it up a little bit. And I'm going to take the density and make it like 50. What happens when I rotate this thing? It's probably not going to do anything. Oh. Yep, they're still going down. Okay. I will complain at him. Almost every VFX has way too many settings, or hello! More settings than you might reasonably need. Not way too many. This one is failing me at the moment. Usually there's a vector somewhere in here for gravity. It's possible it's some limitation. This looks pretty sweet. I'm going to talk to the other guy who I was working with, see how he feels about it, because we were having trouble with the... I'll show you, for those who weren't here last time, there's a sprint ability, and when you sprint, you lose fire trail behind you, but the problem we were having was that the fire trail was running into particle limits. When I tried to do some cooler trails, it went away, and I think that's because there's all these other particles off in the distance. The old black ash particles going up are kind of darkish ones. But if this blizzard effect works, then we don't need those. Yeah, this is ridiculous. There's so many particles. All right, making a note here. Make sure I've written 3 notes tonight. I want to make sure I don't lose one. Or forget what I said. Oh, yep, okay, I remember what it is. Cool. Alright, I like that a lot. This looks really cool. If we could do something with, what I was going to try to do, I thought it had a gravity field or value, and I was going to try to have it turn it upside down so they went up, and I was going to try to have it be cleverly positioned so the main platform blocks them and they only show up over the lava. We can do, given how easily this thing can make these, we can, what shapes do we have? Sphere, cylinder, plane. We can just make somewhere where it has like an octagon of shape around and move it or something. But we might be able to do something clever. We also, I'm going to talk about the collision a little bit. It does appear to be doing good collision. What was the option? Distance fields instead of scene depth. I don't know. This had been in response to when I was trying to build a snow blizzard thing on stream, that it was kind of frustrating because you went inside a house and then the snow fell through the roof. And I talked to him a bunch and came up with some things, ways to make this look better. But this looks pretty cool right now. All right, so smoke. I should call it ashes, really. Status effect system. Let's talk about this a little bit. I don't know if I want to start working on that tonight or just try to find some other small tasks for now and start that next time. All right. So the kind of effects you might want in a game. Simple RPG type thing. You want stun, dot, hot. These are RPG terms. Damage over time. Heal over time. Stun, dot, hot. Slow. Some games have a bunch of distinction between like stun, freeze, that kind of thing. I don't think we need that. Stun, dot, hot, slow. Click on mind control, we don't need that. One of my greatest memories in all of my World of Warcraft times involved mind control. I was playing a priest, a level 58 priest in Vanilla WoW, the actual 15 years ago. And I was trying to get the last few levels and sort of modern experience to be had through Battlegrounds. So I'm sitting in this Battlegrounds level 58 priest doing Ultrac Valley. And of note, Ultrac Valley rounded your level bracket up instead of down. So if you're between 51 and 60, you were all in the same Battleground. So I had to play against people with actual level 60 gear, who were way more powerful than me. But I caught a guy running by, and I hid behind a tree, he didn't notice me. And as he ran by, I cast mind control on him, which allows you to control their character for 10 seconds or whatever and attack. You can't use their abilities, but this guy had really good gear. So I turned around and immediately clicked on the guy next to him, a healer, and he one-shot the healer because his sword was so big and he got some extra lucky hits or whatever. And I was just like, that's amazing. I'm level 58 and I killed this guy immediately. All right, stun, dot, hot, slow. What else do we want? So I'm thinking like there's the typical schools of magic. Frost will freeze and stun. Fire will do dots. Some healing things will have hots. Like a cleanse is not a status effect. It's a way to get rid of a stats effect. We can have those. You could have a generic debuff, just a like increased damage taken or something. I don't know if we need that yet. We can add that later. I guess slow sprint. You could have the opposite of a slow. In fact, we already made one of those in a bad way and talked about how we're going to replace it with this. Let's look at the properties you might want to change. Or damage, buff, debuff. You might want to make someone weak or strong. Make yourself strong, not someone else. There are things like fear, where someone runs away. We don't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the player properties and look at things that I might want to change. In fact, I think maybe in core is actually better. Just look at player settings. Okay. Movement control mode, aim control mode, we don't need those. Rotation and acceleration, that would be really painful to get changed on you. Show head, I can hide your head. Friction, that's kind of a funny idea. Write it down, I don't know if we'll do that, but you could make someone very slidey. In fact, I think that could be reasonable as a, typically in games ice patches make you slow. Like in single player games, ice patches often make you slide, and in multiplayer games, ice patches often make you just slow and not different. I think it could be funny to have a multiplayer game where you throw in an ice patch and people slide around on it, especially since this game is about knocking people around and, you can knock someone across and they have trouble fighting it or whatever. Speed we talked about. Gravity scale, sure. You could make someone float away, make someone not be able to jump, or be able to jump a lot. It is conceivable this game would end up a top-down game in which jumping wouldn't even be a thing. There's no water. Jump count could also be a thing. We're not flying, we're not mounted. Okay, so not a ton of options here. This is actually pretty simple. So breaking this down, stuns are independent, which is to say, if you get hit with multiple stuns, we're not doing any fancy system, we're not doing diminishing returns. You can only be stunned, you can't be double stunned. But if I get hit by a 5-second stun and then a second later I get hit by a 5-second stun, they sit there and expire at the same rate, and 5 seconds after the second one, I can move again. They're just completely independent. As long as there's one, I can't move. When they're all gone, I can move again. All right, dot, independent. All the dots do their own thing. They all do damage. They don't care about anything else. All I need from the system is to track when they start, when they end. The system will also feature types, features, UI, icon, duration, VFX, SFX, character effects. Okay. So dependent. I see I misspelled this every time. All right. So stuns are independent as a group, which is to say they all do the same thing. They don't really care about each other except for they don't double up or anything. The dots and hots are completely independent. Each one of them does its own thing. They don't care about anything else. Slow and sprint fight each other. And stun to some extent. Just to say, there is some complicating factors here. If you have a 50% sprint and a 50% slow on you, how do they work? Are they multiplicative? Are they additive? What if you have 3 slows? Generally, if it was only slows, it'd be pretty simple. You just take the maximum one. Or you multiply them together, but that can feel really bad, right? If you get hit by 3 50% slows and something at 12% move speed, you're going to be like, wow, this is really slow. Games tend not to do that because it feels bad. In fact, in WoW, they just take the maximum one, but there were some talents even for a long time, Blizzard could do a 70% slow. And 70% is real slow. With PvP, it feels bad. And how do sprints interact with that? There's some sprints that cancel off all of them. There's some sprints that you actually remove your slows from you. There's some sprints that say you can't go below 100% movement speed. And there's some that multiply, and we'll have to figure that out. Damage buff, debuff. work together. They similarly will probably do some sort of multiplicative or maximum thing here. Friction. The default game is pretty slidey, so it might go both ways. We might have an effect that makes you not have a lot of friction, or might have a positive effect, an oil patch that makes you actually able to stick very well. I think that'd be pretty cool. Work together. So we have to define some rules for these systems. And gravity, same thing. I don't know that we're going to do jumping stuff. In fact, I think we could limit the scope by removing that for now. But we'll put a question mark on it. All right, and then each one of these needs to have an icon, a duration, and then some thing out. If you ignite a player, that's your dot. They should have fire on them and burning sounds. It shouldn't just be an icon in the corner of the screen with no visual indicator at all. And it should actually do the thing. All right. So I moved the UI because this is a different category. A bar or status bar. In some games, in fact, probably a better term for these, people would call these buffs and debuffs, but because that's two terms, and it's a little weird to jam them together, I'm calling them status effects. So we're going to have there's going to be a status effect bar, UI, controller system that handles networking and actual effects of these, and status effect definitions, maybe some part of the same system, maybe something like the, we'll see how we do that. They'll need scripting, so they can't just be a big tree of custom properties, but definitions of each type that you could have. And in fact, different dots will even have different definitions because they'll have different durations. And then things that apply and remove them. So an API for other systems, for other scripts. Your weapon needs to apply a status effect. Your cleanse needs to remove all the status effects, or maybe your sprint removes all your slows and that sort of thing. Okay. But the controller also has, and just the status effect bar also will call into the same API and deal with the controller system. Okay, this is a sizable piece of work that we need. Similar to the talent selector I wrote, I think I can do this in another file and make it something shareable. I think this is something that other people would find useful. I mentioned before that the spell shock weapons actually have some of these pieces in them. It was written by a coworker of mine. I'm writing from scratch as an example to show how I would do this, and that system was ingrained in the weapons itself, a little bit harder to share maybe. Maybe not. Maybe the system's great and I just don't know about it. But showing how I would do it on screen is still very useful. So let's think about this some more. I've never written a system like this before, but many people have, right? Lots of games have systems like this, even the ones that are not obvious. In World of Warcraft, you have debuffs and buffs on your screen. You know that they're there. And it's a very direct system, but many other games have stuns and slows and that sort of thing and just don't show you or do it more subtly, and they have some system like this so that you don't run into the same problems where you get slowed and sprint at the same time and one cancels out and then you end up in a state where you're permanently slowed or permanently running fast, that sort of thing. All right, I'm gonna leave this document open and open a new map and start to think about this a little more. What did I call my talent selector? This can be status effect system. Okay, completely blank map, my favorite. All right, so we need some scripts. I think we just need one API script that has a apply status effect, remove status effect, get table of status effect definitions, get status effects on a player, status effect API. Actually, my API scripts tend to start with API. Status effects. Let's make that plural. All right. And then we're gonna get rid of these. We already fixed that stuff. Similar to some other systems like the game state system, we need a server and a client script. Some of these things, like the server is the only thing that could add or remove it, or define a, I guess, something that can add or remove. The definition should be shared. The visual should be shared. A client should be able to know what status effects are on each player, what durations they have, and all that stuff. So status effect controller client and status effects controller server. Do I want a plural here? Is there a precedent? Do I have any templates that would refer to a thing that you have lots of? Nameplate. Okay, nameplates. What are their scripts called? Nameplate controller. Okay. Yep. Okay. Precedent is that I kind of went both ways with it. And nameplates don't have an API. But they brought in the structured API. That's nice. Status effect controller. I think effects controller is a little hard. Like, even if it technically seems more correct when you think about it, I think more often than not people would think of an effect controller. All right, create client context in there. And we're gonna make a group in here. Status effect definitions. So these are gonna be scripts. Actually, that's clever. I'm gonna take the name of that and delete this. Okay. Okay. And these need one more group. Status effect state trackers. Player state trackers. So the same pattern we used in the last stream in the Warlocks game for having a networked object tracking the state of a player. We need that again here because each player can have up to some number of status effects at a time, and clients need to be able to know what those are and when they expire. I don't want to fire events back and forth because that is expensive, and if someone joins in the middle or lags, then you want them to know the correct information. So we're going to spawn those in here. They're going to be networked. We're going to have a helper template. Actually, let's make a group right here. Helper status effect player state. Okay. Enable networking on that guy. This will be done in a minute. So static context, in this case, I'm using it because clients insert, because a script in a static context runs on both the client and the server. And unfortunately, because status effects can do a lot of complicated things, I cannot I can't just have them be custom properties on a group somewhere like I did with the talent selector. I could limit my scope a lot and say, oh, if it's a damage one, have these properties. If it's a healing one, do these properties. But I think being able to do custom things, being able to have a status effect that over a duration, makes you hop or something would be kind of cool. And so I'm going to put a script in here for each one, and it the script itself will call into an API and define a thing, and then the client and server will both know about that. It'll know what properties it has. It'll know what to do. That script will pass a function as like a tick function for that status effect and that sort of thing. I think that's a pattern that makes sense for now. And then we'll have these server and client scripts. They will set up the API and create the state trackers. This is a similar pattern. State trackers will keep track of which status effects are on which players, and it'll basically be status effect ID and start time or end time, either one. The status effects will know how long they last. They're not going to change their durations. That's the thing we can worry about later. But basically just, you've got these two numbers, and I can put that on here right now. Look at this. Status effect ID. Status effect start time. I go back and forth between start time and end time. I think start time is simple because when you want to apply one, you don't have to do any lookup at the definition or anything. You can just throw these two in there and that's it. I guess you need the definition to get the ID. We'll call it end time then. And we can imagine in the future hey, look at that, it's orange now, it got fixed. A world where there's like a buff that makes, you cast this cool thing and then for the next 10 seconds all your debuffs last twice as long or something like that. It is a complicated self-affecting system. I imagine the engineers who did the same thing for World of Warcraft have done a lot of this work. Alright, let's look at our API script. What do we need? I said that we need define status effect. Don't know what arguments that takes yet. Get player status effects. Status effects on player maybe. Apply status effect to player. Remove status effect. I think cleansing is a good mechanic. And the question is, do I want a getter or just a local API dot? Guess does need to be local. Does it need to not be local? The question is for the table of all the status effect information. Status effect data, I guess I'd call it, or definitions. We'll make a function for now, we can move it later. Function get status effect definitions. One more thing to put on here. Buff or debuff. It's just a boolean on each status effect, but it will, in general, they behave a little differently. There are things that like cleanse debuffs and not buffs. This could get more complicated. I've actually been pretty annoyed that some of my favorite games actually use this as a hack to make it so certain things you can't get rid of. Like, I don't remember how they do this. In the World of Warcraft, a buff, you can choose to just remove it by right-clicking the icon. And there are some things that are definitely positive that they just made it a debuff so that you couldn't remove it, for example. And I was like, that's kind of a lame way to work around that. Or in Slay the Spire, when you use the card Blasphemy, it says you enter the Divinity stance and then you die next turn. Die next turn is a status effect on the player, but it's a buff, not a debuff, because there are ways to get rid of debuffs and they don't want you to be able to get rid of it. And I'm like, why didn't you just change how that works a little bit? Die next turn doesn't sound like a buff. But in our game, there could be things that you can have an effect that makes your buffs last longer. You cast a spell and suddenly all the buffs on you add 5 seconds to their duration, for example. That'd be pretty cool. Or debuffs on the target. You want to be able to, care which system they are. And it's gonna be great. I'm excited about this. I want to play this game already, and it's not even really that functional. All right, status effect definitions. There's kind of a categories here, right? Each one is. Maybe these aren't independent things. Maybe I should think about this a little bit. Stuns have no properties at all. I guess let's write another table down here. Stun. It's always a debuff. Duration is type equals debuff. Duration. That's it. It has no other properties. I lied. Haha! Flavor. Icon. VFX, SFX. That's it. Okay. I say we could use scripting to handle this stuff, but this is exactly the part why we need the system at all. Stuns are a special type that needs to know not to. They fiddle with your player properties. They need not to fight each other. Okay. So then dot type equals debuff always. Duration. Icon VFX SFX. Yep. I guess. Yes. Everyone's going to have these 3 properties, right? All. You could have an duration could be all around. You could have a dot that lasts a long time. That's some ultimate ability that you have to build up to, or something you cast it and suddenly the person's got, I don't know, they take 10% more damage for the rest of the round. All right. Dots tick function, question mark? Because they're completely independent, they can just do whatever they want. I could do something where it's like you define in the dot definition how often it ticks and how much damage it does, but you could make something that ramps up or ramps down, or depends on other properties of the player, or damages them when they move, or that sort of thing. You do all sorts of funny stuff. And so you just have a function. You want to make sure it's consistent, that it doesn't depend on exact timing. Timing based on status effect duration carefully. So we make sure that it does its things it should. Other than that, it's got a tick function. Okay. Hot type equals buff, always. Tick function, same as dot. All right. Slow sprint. Buff or debuff. I'm wondering about. In World of Warcraft, they have buffs and debuffs that are invisible, and they do a bunch of hackies. Hackies out the right word. They have a bunch of things that interact with each other in weird ways, and there's certain ones that, from the player point of view, are actually multiple. Right, you run fast and take damage, which is what our blazing speed should do. But we could just have it be 2 debuffs or 2 things. It could give you a dot and a sprint, right? Which is fine. It doesn't really matter. That's going to show you 2 icons. In fact, maybe it's even more clear. So buff or debuff. There's an argument for trying to design some sort of system here where they take priorities and try to do some allow players to allow a very complex system where the math between many debuffs and buffs together works in a complicated way. I don't think we need that. Speed multiplier. I think we can just make a simple based on multiplier. Then we just make it simple, which is we look at all the buffs, all the sprints on a person, and take the fastest one. Look at all the slows on a person, take the slowest one, and multiply those two together. That's your speed. I think that'll work basically always in our game. And then care about stuns as well. If you're stunned, then your slows and sprints don't matter because you're stunned, you can't move. And the stun we may be able to avoid this now by just having the systems work on different pieces. Whereas previously they, let me show you. Player settings, where are you? Okay. A common way to try to stun someone is set their speed to 0 and set their jumps to 0, but they can still like walk around in place, and that looks really weird. What you do is you take movement control mode and set it to none, and look control mode and set it to none. And that's what a stun does. You can't move. Whereas a slower or sprint changes this value, and so they interact with each other correctly. Effects control modes. Effects, sprint speed. This is gonna be great. I'm excited about this. Damage buff, debuff. Buff or either, I guess it's obvious. Debuff. All multiplicative. If you have a half damage multiplier and a 3 damage multiplier and a 6 damage multiplier, multiply them all together. That makes sense. Need API to get this out. Basically, anywhere we're doing damage, to use this. In fact, we need to make a damage API. Here we are. Damage API. Okay, we'll worry about that later. Basically, if you're doing damage, it needs to do a couple things all together in a shared way. It needs to show some pop-up numbers. It needs to give you credit if you have an ability that depends on damage, that sort of thing. We need to have all the damage going through one system that does a bunch of gameplay things, and one of them is to respect the damage buffs and debuffs. Great. Friction. Same as slow sprint, I think is what we're going to do. Is that they multiplier speed. I might actually write how I want this to work. Fastest sprint times slowest slow. Same as slow sprint. So you take if you're in an ice patch and an oil patch, just multiply them together. If you get something in the middle, I think that'll be fine. And gravity, we're gonna try to figure out if gravity's actually gonna make this game, how it's gonna feel. We'll think about it. I'm gonna talk to my friend who is coming up with the design of this game and see how he feels about these sort of things. He spent a bunch of time writing a bunch of documents, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it, so we'll see what he thinks. He had some cool ideas. Damage API to use this. Yeah, okay, this isn't too bad. So some of these things have a tick function, these two, and it behaves in a kind of funny way. It's not, I'm not just going to pass in, I'm not just going to call it every frame. I want it to be smart so that when your frame rate kind of stutters, your damage is still like, you know, if I cast a dot on someone and then they cleanse it 5 seconds later, I want it to make sure it did the right amount of damage. If I cast a dot on 2 different people, I want it to do the same damage to both of them, not one of them having to get 17 frames, one of them having to get 19 frames or something. And then for the other ones, there is just a few fields, and that's it. So there's a stun, a slow or a sprint, a damage, buffer, debuff, friction. So there's really 5 types. Dot hot could be one. And I'm wondering if buff debuff should be something we actually set, or if it's like implicit. I think it should be implicit. That if we have something that tries to cleanse buffs or debuffs or something, we just look at how it works and buff or debuff is implicit from other data. Okay, we've got a thing we can set here. so that we can represent buffs and debuffs slightly different on your bar. We can make one of them green, one of them red. We can, like I said before, you could do things where you could click off buffs. We could implement that. I don't know we need it. We could, if we had something like Ice Block, that's one that you very commonly want to cancel yourself, although realistically we might just put into the ability that you press the button again and it goes away or something like that. Yeah, let's see where we go with this. Effect. Status. Effect data. So I'm going to pass it as a table that has several fields in it. I'll put a comment in here in a second. And in fact, I can have all the things. Let me find. Maybe I have constants in it. Game state. Basic game state. This guy. Okay. Yeah, I can't make them local or else they won't be. I guess they're in a table. Local doesn't make sense. API dot status effect type. We're making an enumerated type in Lua. Which is first? I don't know how to order these. We basically have these 5 here. And then dot and hot I'm just going to call tick based or custom and make a comment that says this is how you do a dot or hot, because it can do a lot of very strange things that are not that, right? With the pass your own function behavior, you could make the player jump, or make their controls backwards, or I don't know, all sorts of nonsense. Make their now there's a thing. You could do something that messes with their view, takes their gives them black thing around the edge of their screen, or that sort of thing, which we could do. We'll call it custom. Custom. We're in Lua land. We'll index by 1. My brilliant nephew, who is 12 years old, told me that in his trolling programming language that arrays are indexed by -1. And I thought this was glorious. In all of the world of funny concepts in programming, I had never heard of such a thing. Alright, got stun, API, status, effect, type, move, speed. Damage mod. Friction. Alright. And some comments. Lots of comments. Let's make a huge block comment up here. I like this for symmetry. The way this works in Lua, right, is dash dash is a comment, and square brackets is a multi-line string. So you combine them together to get a multi-line comment. You don't actually need these dashes, but I think the symmetry looks good. All right, custom has a tick function. Most commonly used for dot hot. It could do a lot of things. I'm thinking about having 3 functions here. Tick, start, end has, or can have, any of tick, start, end functions. And I should capitalize these. They're acronyms. A lot of things. Stun. Moves. Prevents any player movement. I don't know how to describe the stacking pattern here. That's fine. Move speed. speeds up or slows down the player. Damage mod makes a player do more or less damage. For what it's worth, we may find we want a more complex system with damage mods to do like you do double fire damage or something like that. We don't even have a spell type system yet, and I don't think that we necessarily need it, but it is something that we might want to add later. Friction. Adjust a player's ground friction. Okay. And then for each of these, and all right, status as effect data fields. All right, name. These are gonna have tooltips and everything. It's gonna be great. Name. That should be obvious. These are exact names. Player face name. Duration. Default duration. Can be missing for duration, or the question is like, how do I want to define an unending effect? Do I even want to worry about that now? Do I not pass this argument at all? Do I set 0 or negative? I'm not sure. I think missing is fine for unlimited duration. Name duration. Icon. Show on UI. Effect template. That's what I'm going to call the VFX SFX. Template to spawn and attach to player for effects. I haven't. We'll get to this later when we see how this is implemented. This will either be a network template that has client context in it, or it will be just if the clients already have all the data they need, then we'll have the client spawn them to avoid network traffic. But that is something that you usually want. How did I define this in other places? Is it defined somewhere? There we go. Angle brackets, like this. All right, so angle brackets means can be missing. You need an icon, you need a name. That's true. Name, icon, duration, effect template, buffer device implicit. All right, so then type. Type from above list. And then tick function for custom type. Call repeatedly. We'll think about that pattern a little more. We might want to call the function over and over again. We want the function to be called once, like a task that spawn and it does waiting and handles that sort of thing. And then we kill it if that might be a better pattern. Start function or apply function. And then the end function, does that happen if it gets removed? Probably. Custom type called when applied. End function for custom type called when expires or removed. I'll probably add arguments to these that say, what player it's on, or as I find I need them. For this one, if it's expired or removed, I might have an argument that tells you which one happened. There's cases where you might want to debuff that when it's removed, it does something, or when it's expired, it does something. You could have both cases. Okay. So let's see. Aspect. So you pass in this data. I kind of want to do some checking in here, similar to what we were doing before. Make sure I haven't made some errors in the middle. What we're doing with the very first day of the talent selector, a month or 2 or 3 weeks ago. So if we're missing a required field in here, make sure we're missing a required field in here, make sure that we give an error that's useful. And definitions. Maybe we don't need this function. Maybe it's just a table. Status effect definitions equals the table. Okay. If all right, let's talk about types in Core a little bit while we're here. Lua defines a small set of types, not that many. Hopefully they're in this document somewhere. Let's see if I can find the word user data. Not that. Nope, not in this document anywhere. Okay. Thinking like I have it in a book in the office that I haven't been to in a month. Anyway, Lua defines like 8 types. It's like string, number, table, boolean, and user data. And user data is, because Lua is generally integrated into other systems, into games or whatever, and then the people who integrate it define a bunch of their own types, like player and core object and ability and all that. Those are all user data. Type is a Lua function, and it tells you what it is of the Lua types. So if I did type of player, I would get user data. Then we defined a type property. So if I took player.type, it would give me a different string, and it might tell me player. You can write a useful function that I will write somewhere in a library at some point that is does this. And if it gets me other than user data, it returns it. And if it gets user data, it returns the other one. If you use the, you've probably seen this pattern in trigger overlap handlers, the if other is a player pattern. Is a accesses the same type field. If other were in fact a string, this would give you an error because it doesn't even know how to is a. Anyway, if it's not a table, then we're in trouble. So we error. Great. Define called with non-table status effect data. I could give a little more data here. Just turn it into a string, whatever it is. So if it's a nil, we know it's a nil. Right away would be kind of helpful. Versus it saying, well, what's on a table? What is it? I don't know. We are missing the paren. Yes. Okay. If not status spec data dot name, then great. More error called with spec data missing name. All right. So this is like the most simple error, right? If you don't have a name, I don't even know how to tell you which call this is bad. It's like whatever table you passed it. I can like print out the whole table. I'm not gonna do that. It's probably a blank table. I'm just gonna say you didn't give it a name. You probably should have given it a name. For the next 3 argument errors or whatever, we know it has a name. Called define status effect called with for missing icon. Writing error. error code. Great. Okay, so I'm going to do this for icon and type. Those are the ones that are mandatory. You can do duration or effect template on any of them. You don't have to have an effect template. And then for these, if type is custom, you should have at least one of these. I'm trying to think of a case where you could have just tick, right? You could have it like repeatedly throws you up in the air or repeatedly damages you in a naive way. You could have just start. It's just a debuff that does something and doesn't, maybe it even pulls back into the system to see if you still have the debuff or something like that. It's kind of ugly. You'd want to have end usually. You could have an end that's a debuff that all it says is in 10 seconds I'm going to do damage to you. Or something like that. Okay. So if type is custom, that's the one that needs this. For what it's worth, we are missing some fields here that we will fix in a second. I just realized that these ones need some implicit data, and it's not there. And it's going to be there in a minute. Okay, so if it's customs, we're gonna have this if statement go through every type. All right, then if not start function and not tick function and not end function. You had it. All right, then has no function but is type custom. Okay, simple enough. All right, stun doesn't need anything. I lied. Move speed, damage mod, and friction. These all need a multiplier. I don't think we need to worry about cases where we want to add or subtract or any of that. I mean, we'd find them to be pretty simple in our how we talked about making this function. You could do a thing with every spell, like it especially works in games that are less real-timey, like card games, where you have time to actually do some math. You might have a damage mod that says everything does one more damage, and then your card that does 1 damage 5 times is way better than the card that does 5 damage once. But in a game like this, you're throwing spells easily rapidly, you're not counting your numbers. You don't need complex, interesting damage mods. You're just taking the talents that are presented to you, and we can add those later if we need them. I'm already making way more than what most people would consider a minimum viable product here. All right, so in all 3 of these, it's just multiplier. Want to multiply the given stat by given property? Yeah. Multiply. All right. Else if I'm going to say not stun, because every other one requires a multiplier. If has no multiplier and requires 1. Okay. All the errors out of the way. This is actually super easy to... Oh, there's actually one more error, but we'll deal with that in a second. So I thought about putting in the table by name, which is how we did some other things, but these things need IDs, so they can... We talked about having a single number to define one, and I think we can just put them in a table as an array. I don't think there's a reason we need to be able to look them up by name. I guess there's a question of when I want to apply a status effect, how do I get that information about the status effect? Do I give it a name, or does it define its own ID? I don't want that. There's probably some build process in some games that the designers press a button and it gives them an ID or something like that. I don't want them to have to be careful about it. I want you to just be able to define it, and maybe they do have to have unique names. That would be okay. And then we define the ID right here. That seems fine, actually. All right, let's do that. So status effect data.name equals blah equals status effect data. Okay, so the data will have the name in it. This is similar to how we did the other thing. We're going to have one more error case, which is that we have two with the same name. Simple enough. For already called. Keep in mind, this function we call them server and the client. Client and server, and they will both. They'll be independent. They should have the same pattern. They shouldn't have collisions. And that status effect already exists. All right. One thing we want to do here is actually add the ID to the data. We're going to do that. Unique ID number defined below. All right. I don't care if they try to pass in an ID. It's wrong, but I'm just going to write over it anyway. So up here, effect next ID equals 1. All right, so we just get the ID and get the next one. Simple enough. This is interesting. So we need the IDs for the networking. Names can be different lengths. We want it to be a constant, like small size thing. We want to make sure they're the same though. And if these are defined in a bunch of different scripts, they can run in different orders and end up with different IDs. That is the thing we kind of want to work. We can either force the people using this or myself to always define them all in one file, which I can do. That's not too bad. Or I can do something where I like hash the name of it, try to get an ID out of it, which isn't bad either. We'll think about that and come back to it. All right, so we've made a function that takes a bunch of data and stores into a table. We haven't done anything with actually networking yet, or applying or removing. We're going to need to deal with that soon. What is in here? Status effect system. That's all the to-dos. All right. Implement player state tracker system. Implement init in server and client. Implement all status effects in one file or guarantee order. What I was just talking about. You know what? I made end time instead of start time. And I have I'm supporting not having a duration, so we'll make it start time. That seems fine. That guy. Eventually we'll need UI, pretty important. Also on nameplates. We'll do that in the game. We don't need that generalized, but you might want to be able to see debuffs on nameplates. Duration, icon. We'll worry about buff and debuff later. It seems pretty obvious that each one has a specific, should be one or the other. I'm not sure we have anything that interacts with that yet, or that we need to. But that is the thing we could add later. We should figure out good pattern for tick function. Lots and dots are going to be pretty common. Yes. Make, stun, slow, make non-custom work. So actually, make custom work. I'll say the non-custom ones, the effect handler needs to deal with all these properties and read them and adjust player states accordingly. This actually isn't too bad. I think this is easier than the talent selector. The talent selector had a whole bunch of UI math that was a real pain. And the things I was reading were more complex too. I think this will be a pretty straightforward system. And we don't have the damage API yet. We'll do that as well. We'll look into that at the end here. All right. That is where we're going with this. I've got a little over 10 minutes. I'm going to do the first part of this and then end it, I think, and come back on Friday and get into as much of this as I can. I might be able to do this entire system on Friday, actually. But player state tracker, simple enough. First things first, API status specs. As a general comment, kind of tangent here, so I work for Manticore, I work on core, right? And I am pretty careful. I read every change that goes into our build. I look at everything an engineer and artist does. I want to make sure I'm very aware of what's happening with the product. I have been very pleasantly surprised that the patch today fixed a bunch of bugs that I did not see the fixes go in, despite my best efforts to read everything I didn't notice. And there were a bunch of things, minor annoyances, and they're great. So go people, engineers did great work, and probably other non-engineers too, but the things I noticed were all engineer stuff. Okay. I grabbed the wrong one for this. That was spectator. I wanted status specs. Whoops. Let's delete that property entirely and give it the right one. So that's the right name. Okay, and then this needs an access to that folder. As does this. I probably could have just selected both these at once. Okay. API, SE, stat. Oh God, why did I call it this? Nope. Oh, because I grabbed the wrong one. I see. Player state tracker group. So we're gonna call that. Okay. This should be a require. Well, the client will be very similar. I'm going to write the server one first and not copy it over ahead of time in case I change things. Similar to how we did the nameplate, or the nameplates, the talent selector, I need a function that tells me the name of the thing, and then one that gets one, the state tracker. Maybe the state tracker can only be in this file. That might be fine. Function API get date tracker name player turn player ID, same as before, but I just want to be careful to put that in the function. client and server. Okay. Function on player joined. Function on player left. Why Sublime? Why do you sometimes do that and sometimes you don't? Player join event. Okay. Okay, so we need a reference to this template. Helper status effect player state. Player state template. Enough. Seen this pattern before. We're spawning a template, putting it inside that group, and we're going to set its name. Okay. Simple enough. We probably do need the function to get the straight tracker because we need to destroy it down here. Okay. State tracker. Oh, then that means this needs to know where that folder is, which it already did for all these things. Yes, man, we're following the same patterns we did the other day. Function API dot initialize status effect controller. State tracker group is the thing we need. I don't think we need that otherwise. We're gonna I feel like this doesn't work. I feel like having my two variables with the same name is going to make this not function immediately. You know what I'm gonna do? Do this. Oops. It's constant, relatively. Okay. So our script will call this thing, and then it will find child by name. That guy. Is that what it does? Find child by name. Yeah, okay. Great. So we found the thing. It works. So state tracker and we destroy it. Easy as that. We need to call this function now with that. Easy enough. And fine. We're not finding anything yet. We're not applying anything yet. It's not bad. This seems like everything we need here. The client script, for what it's worth, is a lot simpler because it doesn't have to deal with these, or those, or that. Oops, that's not the right thing I need. This guy. Client script does have those two properties. Okay. So far this will do a bunch of things. We should see that it doesn't error. Okay. Didn't error. That's something. For a multiplayer preview. Okay. Nothing tries to define anything. Nothing tries to apply any status effects. This function's not defined. But we made a lot of progress here. I'm pretty happy with where we are. We have a path forward, a player state tracker system. We at least create the things. Next time we'll use them. And a server and client. Okay, so one of the things that init does that we haven't done yet, because I haven't figured out if it's in the same file or not, is to, like, do we need to go read all the definitions? Does the other script itself run and read the definitions? Do we, how do we handle that? We need to worry about that. Define status effects. Okay. This is not so bad. Okay. We're gonna make a bunch of status effects. It's gonna be sweet. This is hitting the point for me where I went from I've got a bunch of pieces, but the game itself is not very fun, and it's kind of lame, honestly, to I can very quickly see myself adding a bunch of pieces here and making something very fun. Like, it won't take long to add an ability that stuns someone, and add an ability that slows someone, add an ability that puts an oil patch in the ground. With that auto work, we have all the pieces there, and we'll make something really, like, satisfying. And even better, I can take this aspect system that's pretty straightforward and make a community content thing out of it, and people can throw this in their game and very easily make slows and stuns and all that stuff in their game too, which is great. I'll send it with a bunch of examples. That's cool. All right, well, I appreciate everyone watching. I realize my viewer count just jumped up, and I'm about to end the stream, but thank you. And I will be back on Friday, same time, 7 to 10 Pacific. I will be finishing the status effect system, bringing it back into the game. Hopefully I'll have had a time to talk with my friend, and we'll have some pretty straightforward, here's what we need to build. Maybe we can get a bunch of abilities in and have a fun playtest with that. If nothing else, we'll definitely have a bunch of playtests next week. I'm trying to take this game, I want to take this from a prototype that's sort of working to a fully functional game with 8 players that's a lot of fun, where you play for 20 minutes and pick different talents, and you kind of you get excited about the time where you got the lightning and shadow build or something that's got some cool synergies. I think that'd be really exciting. And hopefully within a week or two, we're there. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will talk to you again as soon as I find OBS here.